It started with a flat tire and a choice that could have gone either way. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the road still glistened with its memory. Silver streaks under a cold November dawn. Jack Turner pulled his old pickup to the shoulder when he saw her SUV, hazard lights blinking like a heartbeat. A woman in a tan coat stood beside it, staring down at the wheel like it had personally betrayed her. He didn't think. He just slowed down, flicked his indicator, and pulled over. Jack wasn't the kind of man who could drive past someone stranded. Maybe it was habit, maybe it was guilt, or maybe, like his late wife used to say, some people are built to fix what others walk away from. He killed the engine, stepped out, and the cold bit through his flannel shirt. "Morning," he said, voice steady, low. "Need a hand?" The woman turned startled, eyes bright, professional but tired. I, I called roadside," she said. "They said 40 minutes. He nodded once, looked at the tire. "You'll be here longer than that. Spare in the trunk?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, but I don't really—" He smiled softly. "You don't have to. Just pop the trunk." Her name was Elena Brooks, late 20s, corporate type. You could tell by the heels she regretted wearing and the phone that wouldn't stop buzzing. Jack didn't ask what she did. She didn't ask what he'd lost. It was easier that way. He worked quietly, hands sure and practiced. The jack groaned, the bolts squeaked. The world kept moving. Elena watched from a few feet away, arms folded tight against the wind. "You do this often?" she asked. He grunted softly, tightening the last lug nut. "Used to. Owned a garage before things went sideways." She tilted her head. "Sideways?" Jack glanced up, the kind of glance that held years. Wife passed, business followed, been trying to keep the lights on since. Elena's voice softened. "I'm sorry." He shrugged. "Don't be. Everyone's got something broken. I just fix mine slower." When he was done, he lowered the jack, wiped his hands on an old rag, and stood. "There," he said. "You're good." She opened her purse instantly. "Please, let me pay you." Jack chuckled, a sound that felt like it hadn't been used in a while. "If I took money every time I helped someone on this road, I'd owe the IRS by now." "At least let me—" she insisted, but he was already walking back to his truck. "Elena," she said quickly, calling after him. "You don't even know my name." He stopped at the door, looked over his shoulder, the faintest smile curling. "I didn't need to. You look like someone who needed a little luck." And then he was gone, taillights disappearing into fog. That night, Jack came home to a quiet kitchen, the kind of quiet that used to scare him, but now just felt familiar. Lily, his 10-year-old daughter, was asleep on the couch, one arm around the family dog, homework still open on her lap. He lifted the notebook, smiled at her crooked handwriting. "My dad can fix anything." He brushed her hair from her face and whispered, "Not everything, kiddo." Then he sat down with a cup of instant coffee, the kind that tasted like getting by, and stared at the unpaid bills stacked by the window. Another week, another debt. The kind of problems that kindness couldn't fix. But fate was already driving back toward him, in a black SUV that hadn't stopped thinking about the man on the side of the road. The next morning, when Jack stepped outside to start his truck, he saw something strange. A white envelope under his windshield wiper. No stamp, no name. Just, "For the man who stopped." Inside was a business card, embossed, heavy, expensive. "Elena Brooks, Chief Operating Officer, Horizon Group." And beneath it, a note in neat handwriting. "You said everyone's got something broken. Maybe we can fix something together. Call me if you're willing to start again." Jack read it twice, then 3 times. The morning sun caught on the gold edge of the card, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel stuck. He didn't know it yet. But that small act, a tire, a stranger, a choice to stop, was about to rewrite everything he thought he'd lost. Because sometimes fate doesn't come with thunder. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the shape of someone saying, "Thank you." The note sat on Jack's kitchen table all morning. He'd read it so many times the paper had started to curl from the damp air. Outside, the world smelled of wet asphalt and second chances. "Maybe we can fix something together." He didn't know what she meant, a partnership, a job, a polite gesture from someone who felt guilty for not paying him. Still, he found himself staring at the phone like it was an exam he hadn't studied for. Lily came shuffling in, hair messy from sleep, still wearing her dinosaur pajamas. "Dad," she said through a yawn, "you're staring at that card again." Jack smiled faintly. "Just thinking about something different." She climbed onto a chair beside him, her feet swinging. "You don't usually think about different. You think about same." He laughed softly, and it broke the silence that had been building since his wife's funeral 2 years ago. "Yeah," he admitted. "Maybe that's the problem." By noon, he'd dialed the number. The voice that answered was warm, composed, and exactly as he remembered. Elena Brooks. "Mr. Turner," she said, as if she'd been expecting the call, "I was hoping you'd reach out." "You left a note under my wiper," he said. "Not exactly something you can ignore." She chuckled softly. "I wanted to thank you again. But also, I might have an offer. Do you have a minute to talk?" He glanced at the stack of unpaid bills by the sink. "I've got a lot of minutes," he said. "I run Horizon Group," she explained. "We're starting a new project, a technical program that helps small mechanics modernize. I need someone who understands both engines and people. Someone like you." Jack frowned. "You don't even know me." "I know what kind of man stops for a stranger in the rain," she said gently. "That's usually the kind worth hiring." Her voice lingered through the receiver, steady, confident, with that strange sincerity money couldn't fake. He looked out the window at his truck. Same rusted paint, same missing mirror. And for the first time, he felt like maybe the road hadn't ended there after all. 2 days later, he stood in front of Horizon's glass building, a place so polished it made him feel like a smudge on the window. Inside, the world smelled of coffee, ambition, and perfume, things he hadn't felt close to in years. He caught his reflection in the elevator mirror, shirt tucked in, toolbox polished, nervousness hidden under resolve. When the doors opened, Elena was waiting, poised, graceful, confident, yet not distant. She smiled. "You clean up well, Mr. Turner." "You don't," he replied, then realized too late how it sounded. She laughed, a real laugh, the kind that didn't belong in boardrooms. "I meant you didn't need cleaning up," he added quickly. "Relax," she said, amused. "Come on, I want to show you something." She led him through a wide room filled with half-built electric engines and mechanical frames. "This," she said, gesturing proudly, "is Project Revival, a new way to bring small-town mechanics into the future." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Fancy name." "It's more than a name. We're trying to rebuild the soul of this company, starting with the people who never stop believing in fixing things." "Like you?" he asked. Elena smiled faintly. "Like us." For a second, the room went quiet. Just the hum of fluorescent lights, the echo of rain still drying on the windows, and something unspoken between them. By the end of the meeting, she handed him a folder. Inside, a contract, a pay rate that made his chest tighten, and a note, handwritten again. "You fixed my car. Maybe it's time you fix your life, too." Jack looked up, lost for words. Elena tilted her head, smiling softly. "Say yes, Jack. You've been standing on the shoulder long enough." That night, he drove home under a sunset so orange it looked almost unreal. Lily was waiting by the porch, waving, her backpack still slung over one shoulder. "How was it, Dad?" He smiled, pulling her into his arms. "Maybe, just maybe, kiddo. Our luck's changing." And somewhere, parked a few streets away, that same silver car gleamed under the fading light, a reminder that sometimes fate doesn't need to be chased. It just waits for you to stop long enough to see it. For the next few weeks, Jack Turner found himself in a world that didn't feel like his own. Gone were the oil-stained floors and flickering lights of his old garage. Now he walked past glass walls and touchscreen dashboards, surrounded by young engineers who spoke in terms of software and sensors, not bolts and pistons. He wasn't sure if he belonged here, but every morning when he passed Elena's office and she looked up with that same grateful smile, he told himself, maybe belonging doesn't start with knowing. Maybe it starts with being seen. Elena Brooks wasn't easy to read. Some days she was all precision, Crisp suits, fast words, late-night meetings. Other days, she'd stop by his workstation with coffee and stories that had nothing to do with business, small-town summers, her father teaching her how to fix a flat on an old Ford. That's when Jack caught glimpses of someone softer, someone human beneath the title of COO. They worked side by side on Project Revival, and somehow the lines between boss and employee started to blur. Not from romance, but respect. A quiet friendship grew, stitched together by shared silences and long nights solving problems no one else stayed late for. One evening, when most of the building was dark, Elena lingered in the garage workspace, staring at a blueprint. Jack noticed her shoulders tense, eyes distant, as if she was fighting something invisible. "You okay?" he asked gently, wiping grease from his hands. "Yeah," she said too quickly. "You sure?" "I just, She hesitated. "You ever feel like you're building something that could fall apart any second?" Jack chuckled softly. "Every car I've ever worked on." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's not the project I'm worried about," she admitted quietly. "Then what?" "The people I'm doing it for." There was a silence heavy enough to feel. Jack didn't press. He just handed her his coffee, the kind gesture of a man who knew pain didn't always need an audience. The next morning, things felt off. When Jack arrived, the entire building buzzed. Whispers, nervous glances, papers shuffling faster than usual. He caught fragments of words as he passed. Audit, missing funds, internal report. In her office, Elena sat stiff, face pale, eyes red-rimmed from a night without sleep. The woman who usually commanded every room now looked like someone barely holding it together. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping inside. She didn't look up. "I messed up, Jack. Someone found an error, a financial gap in the project accounts. They think I moved money. I didn't." Her voice broke slightly. "But they won't believe me." Jack's chest tightened. "Who's they?" "The board, the media, everyone who's been waiting for me to fall." He leaned against her desk, jaw tightening. "Tell me what you need." "Nothing," she said bitterly. "You've done enough. This isn't your problem." "It is," he said firmly. "You gave me a chance when you didn't have to. Let me return the favor." For the first time since that morning on the highway, she looked at him not as an employee, but as a person she could trust. And in that fragile silence, something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet, but the start of something fate had planned long before they met. That night, Jack drove home under another storm. The same kind of rain that started it all, but heavier this time, angrier. Lily was already asleep when he came in, and for a long time, he just sat by the window watching the lightning tear the sky apart. He thought of Elena, her strength cracking just enough to show she was human. He thought of how fate keeps testing the ones who least deserve it, and somewhere deep down, he felt it again. That same pull that had made him stop on the road that day. Not obligation, not curiosity, just instinct. The kind of instinct that said, some people you're not meant to pass by twice. The next morning, the sky cracked open again. The kind of rain that feels like déjà vu. Jack arrived at Horizon to find chaos waiting. Security guards at the lobby, board members whispering near the elevators, reporters outside the glass doors like vultures circling a story. He caught a headline on a phone screen as he passed. COO of Horizon Group under investigation for embezzlement. Inside her office, Elena sat still, too still, like a storm contained in human form. "They suspended me," she said quietly before he could speak. "Effective immediately." Jack stared at her, jaw tight. "For what? For caring too much about people like me?" She gave a small, broken laugh. "Apparently that's bad for business." Her eyes glistened, and for a second, the powerful executive looked like that same stranded woman on the highway. Soaked, cornered, trying not to break. "You told me you didn't do it," Jack said firmly. "So who did?" "I don't know," she whispered, "but someone inside this building wanted me gone." He clenched his fists. "Then let's find them." "Jack," she said softly, "you can't get involved. You have Lily. You have your life back." He stepped closer. "You gave me a job when no one else would. You think I'm going to walk away now? She looked up at him, eyes full of disbelief and something deeper. Trust, maybe. It was the same look she'd given him that rainy morning, except now the stakes were higher, the world colder. That night, Jack stayed after hours. He combed through project files, invoices, shipment receipts, anything that didn't fit, and somewhere around midnight, he found it. A payment record buried inside a system update, money routed through a shell account, then back into Horizon's charity fund. The name attached, Richard Cole, head of finance, the same man who had accused Elena publicly. Jack's pulse quickened. He printed the document and slipped it into his jacket. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew who the real thief was. He was halfway to his truck when a voice stopped him. You should have kept your head down, Turner. Richard stood under the flickering garage lights, umbrella in one hand, fake smile in the other. You think you're saving her? You're just another broken mechanic she picked up to make herself feel good. Jack didn't move. Rain tapped against the concrete like ticking time. You stole from her company, Jack said quietly. Correction, Richard sneered. I borrowed, and unlike her, I know how to survive. Jack took a step closer. You framed her. She's strong, Richard said, smirking. She'll survive a scandal. You won't. Before Jack could reply, Richard walked off, like a man who believed the world was built for people like him. But Jack knew something he didn't. Storms don't choose who they wash clean. By the time Jack reached home, the rain was relentless. He stood by the door, soaked, heart pounding. Lily peeked from her room, rubbing her eyes. You're wet, Dad, she mumbled. You okay? Yeah, he said softly. Just fixing something big. He tucked her back into bed and sat by the window. Lightning flashed, thunder rolled, and somewhere between the noise and the stillness, he made his choice. He would protect Elena, not because she gave him a job, but because fate had given him a reason to keep believing in good people again. Morning came slow. Gray skies, cold air, the world still soaked from the night before. Jack Turner didn't sleep. He couldn't. The file he'd printed sat on his table, edges damp from the rain. Every line on that page screamed one thing. Richard Cole set her up, but proving it wasn't going to be easy. He wasn't an executive or a lawyer, just a single dad with a rusted truck and too much heart. Still, for the first time in years, he felt like he had something worth fighting for again. At Horizon Group, the atmosphere was electric, not with energy, but with tension. The news had spread like wildfire. Employees avoided eye contact. The board had called an emergency meeting, and Elena Brooks was walking into it alone. Jack arrived minutes before it began, wearing the same flannel shirt he'd worn that first day on the highway. He didn't belong here, but he wasn't leaving without saying what needed to be said. He saw her near the glass doors, her face pale but composed. Even now, she carried herself like she had something left to lose. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly when she saw him. You know I can't stay out of a mess I helped clean, he replied. Her lips trembled into a small, tired smile. They won't listen to me. Then they'll listen to me, he said. Inside, the boardroom gleamed like a courtroom. Men in suits, voices sharp as knives. The kind of people who smelled fear and profit the same way. Richard Cole stood by the projector, confidence oozing from his smile. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, the evidence is clear. Misappropriation of funds, deliberate or not, occurred under Miss Brooks' supervision. Elena sat silently, her fingers laced together, knuckles white. Jack waited until Richard finished, then stepped forward. You forgot something, he said. The room went still. Every face turned toward him. The mechanic who didn't belong here. Richard's smirk faltered. And you are? Someone who fixes things that break, Jack said calmly, sliding the printed document across the table. He pressed a button on the projector remote, and a different set of files appeared. Records of payments rerouted through dummy accounts signed under Richard's Access ID. The evidence was undeniable. You call it evidence, Jack said quietly. I call it truth. You framed her. Richard's face drained of color. You have no right to. I've got every right, Jack interrupted, his voice rising. Because the woman you tried to ruin gave me a chance when I had nothing. And she deserves better than snakes like you calling the shots. The board murmured. Lawyers whispered. And for the first time, Elena looked up. Not as someone defending herself, but as someone realizing she wasn't alone anymore. Hours later, the news broke again. But this time, the headline read differently. Horizon Finance head under investigation for fraud. Richard Cole was escorted out of the building before sunset. Elena was reinstated. And Jack, well, he thought his part was done. But fate doesn't end where you expect it to. That evening, he packed his things quietly. He left his ID badge on the table and stared out the window one last time. He didn't belong here. Not among suits, glass walls, and politics. He just wanted peace for Lily and enough work to keep food on the table. Elena found him in the garage downstairs. His hands in his pockets, the faint echo of rain still outside. Leaving already? She asked. He turned, smiled gently. My work here's done, ma'am. Don't call me that, she said softly. You saved my career. You saved my life first, he replied. They stood there for a moment. Two people who'd lost too much, somehow finding pieces of themselves in each other. The silence between them was full, not awkward, but understood. Stay, she said finally. I could use someone who actually believes in fixing things for the right reasons. I don't belong here, he said. Maybe you belong exactly where you're needed, she replied. He looked down, then back up, eyes tired but alive. All right, he said quietly. One more round. That night, as he drove home, Lily was waiting by the window like always. When he walked in, she jumped into his arms, laughter mixing with relief. You're smiling, Dad, she said. Yeah, he whispered, holding her close. Guess today, I fixed something bigger than a car. She giggled. Like what? Fate, he said simply. And as thunder rolled one last time outside, Jack realized something profound. Sometimes fate doesn't test us to break us. It tests us to rebuild us into who we were meant to be. The storm was gone. The kind of gone that leaves the world cleaner than before. Wet streets glistening like glass. Sky washed into soft gold. The smell of earth and second chances hanging in the air. Jack Turner stood by the shop door, coffee in hand, watching the sun fight through the clouds. For the first time in years, he wasn't running from bills or ghosts. Just standing still, breathing. Inside, Lily sat at the counter, legs swinging, coloring something on the back of an invoice. A stick figure family, a little girl, her dad, and a lady with long brown hair standing beside a shiny car. He smiled. Who's that, kiddo? Lily grinned without looking up. You, me, and your boss, who smiles funny. Jack laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from deep inside. Guess that makes me the lucky one then. Later that morning, a familiar hum rolled down the street, the sound of a silver car slowing to a stop in front of the shop. It wasn't just any car. It was that car, the one that started it all. Still spotless, still perfect. Except now, it carried a story between them. Elena stepped out, hair loose, smile quiet but real. The rain had left her softer somehow, less like a CEO, more like someone who remembered what roads felt like. I was in the neighborhood, she said casually. Uh-huh, Jack replied, smirking. Because billionaires always drive through small-town repair shops before breakfast. She rolled her eyes, laughing. Old habits die hard. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. Not business, not official, just handwritten. For you and Lily, she said. Don't say no. He took it, hesitant. Inside was a key. What's this? A new space, she said. Downtown, fully equipped. Horizon wants to fund a community garage, training young mechanics, offering free repairs for single parents. He blinked, stunned. You're serious? Completely. You fix people's cars, Jack. But I've seen the truth. You fix people too. He didn't know what to say. Words felt small, so he just nodded, emotion swelling quietly in his chest. Thank you, he said. No, she smiled softly. Thank you for stopping that day. As she turned to leave, Lily ran outside, waving her drawing. Miss Elena, look, it's you. Elena knelt down, the paper crinkling as she smiled. That's beautiful, she whispered. You made me look happy. You are, Lily said innocently. My dad said fate fixed you. Elena looked up, eyes meeting Jack's through the morning light. And for a moment, it felt like the universe had paused to smile back. When they finally drove off, Jack stood in the sunlight, watching the road stretch ahead, clean, endless, and full of promise. He tucked the key into his pocket and turned to his daughter. Ready to open our new shop? Can I name it? She asked. Sure. Then I want to call it Fate Auto Works. He chuckled. Why that? Because everything good started with a flat tire. He stared at her, heart full. Yeah, he whispered. I guess it did. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the first sign of twilight kissed the horizon, Jack turned the open sign on their new shop for the first time. The sound of tools, laughter, and life filled the space again, not as noise, but as rhythm. And somewhere across town, Elena looked out her window at the same sky, whispering to herself, some stories don't end. They just keep driving. Fate doesn't arrive with thunder or magic. It shows up quietly, in kindness, in courage, in the small moments that fix more than what's broken. He stopped for a stranger in the rain and found the life he thought he'd lost. This was Dad and Fate, a story of roads, redemption, and the love that keeps us moving.